Welcome to Sober Dad Crew, the podcast where we talk about all things dad, sobriety, recovery, parenting, music, tattoos, and more. For more information or to get in touch, visit soberdadcrew.com.
Steven, what's up, man?
Hey, how are you?
I am good.
And, got to just acknowledge, too, what a heavy week in the world right now.
Well, it's just tough, man. What's so frustrating, Steven, for me, because I have friends that are Palestinian. So I've reached out and talked to that friend. But what's been really frustrating, and she will even admit, my Palestinian friend, is that people want to demonize one side or the other, regardless
100%.
of what side you're on. It is the Palestinians are evil and they are Nazis, or it's the Israelis are trying to commit ethnic cleansing. And it's like, listen, I'm not saying that there isn't some people that have malicious intention. I'm sure of that. But that doesn't mean it's everybody. And if we only want to stay in our corners and not talk, and this is the thing that frustrates me, Stephen. I asked my Palestinian friend, do you know any Israelis? And she does not. She does not have one that she's been able to have a intelligent adult conversation with about their point of view. And that, in my opinion, is the reason that we are where we are. People don't talk. I had a friend that posted some stuff. I called him about it. He didn't call me back. I respond to his post. He's quick to send a long diatribe of why he's right in his response, but he won't pick up the phone and have a conversation with me. And 100%. That's the problem.
And this topic has come up a lot on Sober Dad Crew, mostly in regard to America right now, that we don't talk.
You don't talk.
Right? We are all in our silos and we don't talk. And it's so problematic. And I think what we're seeing in the Middle East, I think my other frustration with people is their comments are so not rooted in history.
Right.
They're not looking at the establishment of Israel and all the components that go into this. And like you said, there's a lot of wrong on both sides. People committing the wrongs are not just the people.
Yeah.
And political, but it's just hard not to connect and talk about bigger issues and not think about the world right now. And it's so complicated, and so many things exist in the gray. The truth is in the middle and no one wants to wrestle with it.
That's the problem. The problem is everybody wants to be right. They want to be right. And the reality is, in my opinion, and this is, I don't know all the facts, but from what I've researched, both are wrong in some way. So they want to be right. They want to a zero-sum game, win or lose, right or wrong, versus they're both wrong in some way and they're both right in some way. Let's figure out how to get into the gray that we can all be happy with the good parts that we have and the right that we have.
Yeah,
and they won't get there.
And I think an interesting example tried South Africa and Desmond Tutu's Truth and Reconciliation Commission that was in power and oppressing Black Africans. But in the end, bad things did happen in both directions.
Right.
People, if all you give people is a hammer, and they're oppressed, everything's a nail, right? If you have no political power, you have to and hammer things. But at the end of that, they had the Truth and Reconciliation Commission where everyone sat down and they talked about what happened, and that country moved forward. It's kind of an amazing thing. It's such a rare example. And people don't do that on a personal level, let alone on country.
Yeah. We just got to talk, man. And listen, I don't try to have all the answers. I just wish we would just talk more. That's the thing that I wish we would really do. Just communicate a little better and see things from the other people's point of view. That's it.
Actually, a good way kind of to segue into your book a little bit. And Bamboozled, that's a title that's really rooted in history of sort of people being tricked and disenfranchised. Intention behind that title.
Well, it definitely was. I will be in all transparency. It wasn't to that level of it dealt, right? It was more tongue in cheek. of Bamboozled, using the word booze and the trick and the beguiling of how you and makes you think you're getting something when you're not standpoint. But however, in the sense of if you want to talk about the media and how the media at times has been a part of the publication of alcohol being a positive in people's lives, I talk about that tremendously in the book. I talk about how we're socially engineered, primed at a very young age to believe that as adults, we have to drink alcohol. We need to drink alcohol. We must drink alcohol to be an adult and live a happy life and successful. And how we think that we're making a decision because we want to do it when we don't recognize the fact that we've been told this since we were 3, 4, 5 years old. And we don't ever stop to question, do I really need it? And the book is just kind of bringing that to people's light and having people recognize decision is your decision. But when you really open your eyes and look at how many times it's pressed upon you daily, you recognize it's really not your decision at all.
Right. And in a lot of different sort of environments, right? I mean, you talk a lot about the workplace, and that's come up on this show a lot too. Yep. And I'm out and sober at work, and I've had past jobs where people really are suspicious of that or treat you differently for that. And it's an interesting experience. I'm like, am I triggering you? Am I shedding light on an arena that you do not want to explore? But, I would go to these conferences and we would wine and dine people. COVID accentuated a lot of that. They had these
absolutely
Zoom happy hours and stuff. And at work, we're actually talking about our holiday party. And I said, this year, can we just please get more non-alcoholic options that aren't seltzer or soda? There's so much like incredible stuff out there. And I was talking to one of the coworkers I'm close to, and she's like, yeah, like my husband and I just like to have a glass of wine. After that, we want to switch to something else. Yeah. It'd be nice if it didn't have to be water.
Yeah. Something different. Yeah. And I saw you had Chris Marshall on. So the cool thing about that and with Chris and what he and some of the other sober bar baristas, if you will, people are doing is that it's becoming more accepted in society, which is appreciated. So to your earlier point, man, I talk about it in the book, a complete chapter dedicated to alcohol and its place in the marketing world, sales world. I've been sales now and have been in it for over 16 years. And I always have the statement, if you think college is your undergrad when it comes to drinking, sales is your graduate degree, maybe your doctoral, because I mean, the way in marketing is probably in that same bucket, which is just a subsect of sales, if you will. Yeah. But just the way it flows and how you're expected to do it. And to your point, Stephen, almost if you don't do it, it can hinder your career with your customers or even with your boss. When you talk about that relationship building and how getting promoted at times happen on the golf course and people are sharing beers or at the bar when they're smoking cigars. And if you're the guy that stands out, you might get passed up for a promotion that you're qualified for because Johnny drinks more than you do and likes to do it. So, but I do think it's really cool that there are more people recognizing that you don't have to do it. I think there's a huge sober movement in the United States. I just saw something by James Swanwick, who does Alcohol-Free Project, Alcohol-Free Life. He's on Instagram and talking about how how drinking is kind of becoming the new smoking, in the sense that more and more people are starting to recognize, we talk about being bamboozled, that they've been fed a lie for years that they were okay with drinking. Like, as long as you're not an alcoholic, then there's nothing wrong with you. And they're starting to recognize, one, that's not true. There's a lot of scientific medical things that you are hurting yourself for. But two, emotionally and then cognitively be at your best when you're drinking. There's just no way. You think that hangover is only lasting the next day? It's lasting a long time down there. And my prediction, Stephen, is eventually companies will start recognizing the lost productivity they're having with their employees from drinking, and there'll be more of a push to do less of it than it is now to do so much of it consistently.
And I think, because I have an office with, a staff of 35 now or 40 do marketing. There's always an influx of younger interns and then younger staff, and they definitely have a different view on drinking. I think, people in their mid-20s, and I think it's connected to what you said, that it's becoming sort of the new cigarette. Younger people just have a different view. They have a different view of work, 100%. I mean,
there's that.
I think most of that is good. Some of them, when they start and they're like watching a movie on their phone while they're working, we do have to be like, yeah, like that's not a thing. Like you did that in college, but like you actually can't do that here.
Yeah,
but
that's not multitasking.
Yeah, because actually that's sort of a myth, right? Multitasking is actually kind of a bunch of crap.
It definitely is.
My wife would definitely say you do not multitask. I hardly single task sometimes. I'm like, wait, what did you ask me to do before I left the room? But I think that like the younger people, they just have a different view. And I think it is connected to their view of not wanting to be owned by work, which I think is healthy.
Yeah. So question for you, because honestly, I haven't seen that in my profession as much, because I just, and that's shame on me, because I probably should spend more time with the younger people. Is it, Stephen, that they are just not prescribing to drinking because they know it's bad for them, or they're not into the happy hours because they're like, that's infringing upon my personal time?
I think it's a little mixed. So in the architecture world, we do, people bring what they're working on, and you put it up in the conference room, and people sort of talk about what their projects are and what they're doing. And in the past, beer or grabbing a glass of wine, and you have a lot more people, especially younger people, but some other folks in the office who are grabbing a seltzer or so. I think it's a mix, and like all things, it depends on the person a little bit. But younger staff who definitely are there long after I leave in the evening. It's what, and I'm not an architect, I just sort of observe it from the outside. You're 1, and you want to become a designer 2 and a designer 3, and your ultimate goal is to get licensed. So you have to have a certain amount of hours and all the stuff to even take the test. To have somewhat of a level of seriousness, is really the thing that creates the most opportunity in that field. I've just always swum in the world of marketing, which, as you said, connects. It's just marketing and sales are just really one's the right arm, one's the left arm.
Yeah, very much so.
We're a little evil. I presented at my 5th graders school last year. I'm like, what am I going to talk about marketing that's not going to bore a bunch of 5th graders? So I showed a Nike ad.
They're excited about that.
They were super excited about that. But it hardly shows Nike at all. It's very diverse ad. It's really interesting. And so that sort of created a lot of interesting conversation. I also sat on a desk, which apparently was a super no-no. I was like, I don't know. This is a tattooed marketing guy. I just sat on the desk because it was comfortable, but apparently I was not supposed to do that, or at least the kids are not. But it's sort of like, how do you even talk about like what we do? It's very abstract.
And a little bit, right? But hey, you are a great person to talk about that influence. So you just mentioned the Nike ad, not showing or not mentioning Nike or anything like that. I mean, from an alcohol perspective, that's just what has happened. We've been primed. We hear about it. We think about it. We talk about our 21st birthday. If you think about all of the shows that you watch, which is interesting because I haven't seen it as much lately, but I remember when I first stopped drinking about 5 years ago, your eyes just become completely open to how much is everywhere around you. Because before, I didn't see it because I was a part of it. As soon as I removed myself from it, I started seeing it on every single thing. And I started seeing all of these shows and every commercial. And I think there was a study done that it said probably about 86% of movies and shows have some form of alcohol in it at some point, like somebody's drinking. And then when it's typically portrayed, it's in a very positive manner that you drink, you have a problem, and you don't know what to do. Let's go out and drink tonight. We'll figure it out together. That's probably not going to really help you solve your problem in any capacity. And they don't show the hangover the next day and how terrible you are. So it really, 1, doesn't portray all the negative aspects of alcohol in the moment, but then 2, they don't truly show all the negative aspects afterwards that it affects. And that just goes to marketing and the alcohol industry and how they have had this amazing machine that has propagated a sense of drink responsibly, right? That slogan, but what does that really mean in totality? Can you really do it?
Yeah, 100%. So a couple of things, movies from like the 1980s, so much cigarette smoking, right? And there was a group of teenagers called Reality Check. And this was in the later 90s, started calling out, big tobacco on product placement in kids' movies. The young people, who kind of take the charge on some of that stuff, because now there's hardly any smoking in a movie.
Yeah,
right?
you don't see it
on TV. Very rarely do you see it. And it's often now kind of like the bad guy or something would be the one that would smoke, as opposed to like the cool person. I mean, maybe like a madman was the exception to that, but it was also, that was sort of the period.
The era.
Right. So there's that. And then I think, when you said, what does drink responsibly mean? I mean, I can count the times I've actually been drunk on one hand.
Oh, wow. Really?
Did I definitely have a problem with alcohol? Absolutely. Because I used it like as a depression coping mechanism, so that one glass of wine became 2, became 3 every night. And that was my mental health tool. Not a very good mental health tool. Definitely impact personal relationships. Definitely impacted work.
Yeah.
If I think back at that time, I was like, was I doing my best work? And a lot of it was connected to the mental health stuff, but alcohol just totally became part of that mix.
Yeah.
And so alcoholic, I said, I have substance use disorder or alcohol use disorder, because that resonates with me. And even in your book, it's interesting because you sort of kick off by saying like, book's not for people who are active alcoholism. There's a lot in there I think is valuable for people, but if you're in that soup, you're not ready for what's in your book.
Yes, that's it, Stephen. Like, and I say that with all humbleness, that I appreciate if people feel like it can help them. But for me, I never got to that point. And I am just very slow to try to give advice to anyone in a situation that I've never been in. So it's just hard for me because I don't know that actual feeling. And so, it also relates to the slant that I try to take with the book and the reason I stopped drinking. Giving up alcohol isn't about what you will lose. For me, what you will lose if you keep going down this road, because so many people think you got to hit rock bottom. For me, when I was reading like Annie Grace's This Naked Mind, Craig Speck, Alcohol Live to Me, William Porter's Alcohol Explained, there are so many stories of the persons hitting rock bottom and waking up somewhere and doing something they can't remember, and then they realize they were having a problem with drinking. But for me, it was, hey, my life is okay now, but I know I've always felt like this is holding me back. How much better could it be if I gave up this one vice that's really mentally, emotionally, and physically impairing my ability to be the very best version of myself? So it's not about giving up alcohol because of what you can lose. It's about giving up alcohol because of what you can gain by doing so. And that's always been my focus, is around thinking about the positive side of what you're going to get from not drinking, not about the negative side of what you can lose if you continue to drink. Now, the reality is, if you do continue to drink and you drink a lot consistently, you will probably end up in that 1.4% of the world, of 13% of the US population who prescribes, as you said, with alcohol use disorder. But what I typically try to speak to are that 86% of people who drink and think, oh, I'm fine. But then they just to hopefully open up their eyes, like, you're maybe okay, you're fine now, but there's a much better version of yourself, and there's so much more you're missing out on because you drink consistently and it's not really serving you the way you think it is.
And the cool thing about that is also you can apply it to other things.
Yeah.
Right. Because what's the next thing that's holding you back? And, you do this inverted pyramid thing in the book. And it's funny, my 20-year-old was over and we're having lunch yesterday, and he hasn't gone to college yet. He's sort of trying to find his way, and he's talking about his goals. And I was like, okay, so you're here, inverted pyramid. So what's the what? And you want to be up there. So what's the first next thing?
Yeah.
And then what's the next thing? And my older two kids have seen this from when, I was a single parent and I was underemployed. And I was like, okay, apartment with three of us, like what's the next thing I got to do to move us forward? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? And it's a good discipline, and it works, because sometimes if you're at the one point and you look all the way to the end, there's like light and a path, but it seems almost impossible. So people often give up, but it's really one step at a time. It's like, what's the one or two or three, whatever it is, what's the next step I need to take? And then you get to that step. What's the next one? And then with that discipline, you keep going. You can achieve almost any like reasonable goal.
Absolutely. I really want to press upon people about the book and what I try to convey. There is no one way. So my publication that I started is called Alcohol is Not Your Friend. It's the precursor to Bamboozled. I was a year and a half, maybe almost 2 years into my sobriety journey. I was learning so much about the science of alcohol and the emotional, physical, psychophysiological aspects of it. And my mind was being blown, and I wanted to share it with people. So I started the publication, Alcohol is Not Your Friend, just to get that information out there. But I truly believe there's no one way to do it. You have to do it your own way when it comes to giving up alcohol. And there's a lot of ways to do it. And the step-by-step, one day at a time method is something I truly believe in, because I didn't know that I was not going to drink forever. For me, it was initially just a 90-day thing. I said I was going to take a 90-day break because I wanted to succeed in my entrepreneurial business. And then we'll see what happens at the end of 90 days. Fortunately, I experienced so many amazing and positive things in those 90 days. There was no way I could go back. There was just too much. And then I really want to hit on, when you talk about the inverted triangle, the thing that I want to make sure people get, you really have to understand, is when you're at that bottom, you really need to do some internal introspective thinking and research to figure out what is that one thing that is your beginning, that one thing that's holding you back. Because if you never overcome that, and this was me for the longest, honestly, if you allow, like mine was alcohol. So with alcohol, even though, Stephen, I was running hard and I was doing the things and I was still moving at such a slow pace and in no way achieving the results I could, that even though I was having some success, it wasn't the success that I was capable of, because I was allowing alcohol to keep me held back and to hold me down. Once I said, stop drinking, and I will no longer allow this to be the great governor, like a governor as in a vehicle regulator. When I said it won't anymore govern my life, that was when my life took off. And there were so many things that I never thought. Prime example, writing this book. How many years did I talk about writing a book? 41 when at 38 when I quit, 41 when I started writing the book. So 41 years prior to me writing the book, I had been talking about writing a book and I didn't do it. As soon as I quit drinking, everything started to be put in place. So I tell people, when you look at the inverted triangle and you're trying to figure out what the steps are you need to take and what the next lever you need to go, the main thing you got to focus on first is, what is that vice? What is that thing that and I think we all know it. Because I think when you think about it, it kind of, something pops in your head, and that's probably it. What is that thing that if you quit, everything else would be so much easier for you? Once you figure that out, man, your life can be something special.
And I think there's sort of emotional work that has to come with that too, because I think a lot of people, they actually want to hold on to that thing because it's scary to try, because you actually might fail. So if you hold on to that, you can have excuses. Like, there's always a reason to not try and write the book. There's always a reason to not ask for a promotion. There's always a reason to not ask somebody out for a date. There's all these things. So you got to do some emotional work. I mean, I just stopped drinking. Never went to meetings or anything, but I definitely did therapy, because I was like, there's a lot of stuff I got to unpack behind why, this is a tool for me to sort of get through my day or balance out what's going on in my life. Yeah. And once I did and started to do the work, your trajectory is strong. right? You can just look and figure out how to do the next step. Yeah. And you might not always make it, right? I've applied for jobs I didn't get. There's all kinds of stuff. But then when you do the work and you've sort of removed alcohol and the excuses that circle around with it, you're actually able to kind of dust yourself off. I mean, so much of my job is proposals that we submit on 30, 40, $50 million projects. We don't win a lot of them.
Right.
And, it sucks some days, but you just got to dust off and do the next one. It can be disheartening sometimes when you put a lot of work into something and you don't get what the end result you want. But if you removed alcohol or other things that are holding you back, you have better outlook on what's going on and can kind of get back up and be like, all right, I didn't work today, but I can try again tomorrow.
Absolutely. And that's what it's all about. And you hit the nail on the head. Me and Jason LaChance, I saw you had Jason on here
he's
as well.
Awesome.
A great guy. A couple of podcasts back, we talked about the mental health aspect of it, Stephen. And I just think so much more focus needs to be put there and around the exacerbation of how alcohol makes people that might not know they have some mental issues going on because they always use alcohol as the coping mechanism. And I think it does two things. One, I think it exacerbates the mental health issue. It makes it worse. And then two, I think it covers it up for so long. So people are thinking that there's nothing wrong because they never give themselves the time to really sit in it. Because of the alcohol. The alcohol allows you to take your mind off of things. You have a bad day at work, you go home and drink. You and your spouse get in an argument, you go home and drink. You have something happen that you didn't expect, you go home and drink. So instead of sitting in that feeling and working through those emotions, you just drink and you never develop the skills to really deal and cope with it. And that's why I think one of the things that I really want to try to focus on more and have more vocal response on is really around the mental health issue of drinking and how we drink to cope with issues that, if we really look at them, are things that we need to focus on without alcohol, because we'll never be able to truly cope with it because of how cognitively impaired alcohol makes us become. And we got to get it away from us if we really want to deal with the problems that we have. Yeah.
If we can't get to our personal truth, how are we going to get to our societal, historical truth?
Amen, brother. Amen, bro. Yeah, listen, if we can't figure out our relationship with our friend or our sister, brother, or coworker, then how are we supposed to figure out our relationship with countries and issues of larger, more diplomatic, political issues? And that because that's the problem, that line of communication. So I'm with you, man. I just think they say change in the world starts with changing yourself. And that is what we need to do. And that's why I don't demonize alcohol, because I do think there is a place for alcohol, even at some point in your life, perhaps. I think there are times, and I think sometimes you won't know how great life can be unless you have that parallel to see what life is without alcohol. So you need to kind of drink to see what life can be without it, right? So it's almost like you need evil to really understand how great good is, if you will. As a society, we need to figure out how we drink less. We stop making it something that is so normalized that almost people feel like they have to do it. And people really start looking at it from a health and psychological point of view of, you don't need to stop drinking because you are an alcoholic. That's why I don't use the term sobriety. I use the term alcohol consciousness, because alcohol consciousness has nothing to do with you being addicted or having an issue with alcohol. Alcohol consciousness is you recognizing that alcohol does a number of things negative to you, health-wise, psychologically, emotional, and you deciding for yourself, you rather live your life without it. No different than someone that doesn't smoke or because they're health conscious. They don't eat fried chicken because they're health conscious. It's the same thing. You're just someone that's conscious of what alcohol negatively does for you. Therefore, you decide not to partake.
And I think a cool lens on that too, as we're in this time of, marijuana really getting legalized more and more places. It's not my thing. Like a lot of things, I try not to judge what people do. Don't get behind the wheel. Don't hurt anybody. To say like, yeah, this is legal, but are its impacts on me outweigh, the benefits outweighing the negatives? It's just it's a good lens, and it doesn't even have to be alcohol or marijuana. The way you present your book and alcohol can be applied to so many other things that I think it's really valuable.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for me, it's just around education. Like what I wanted to do with what I tried to do initially with Anuff, and what I wanted to do as I continue with the extension of Bamboozled, is educate readers. It is not to tell you shouldn't drink. It's not to judge. It's not to even influence. I'd say a little bit is to influence based on the parables and the showing how much better your life can be without it. But really, the core and crux of it is to educate. It's about just making sure people are aware of the negative things alcohol is doing to them, how it's a carcinogen, how and the older you get, and that's where you talk about the benefits, right? And I will say this, regardless of if you drink or you don't drink, at what stage you drink or how much you drink, I don't try to judge. I don't demonize. You do you, as long as you're happy. If you feel like you're truly happy doing what you're doing, then I have no regret. I have no response to that, because in my opinion, the only true point of life is to be happy. That's a different philosophical question or thought. But at any rate, when it comes to Bamboozled, it's around just making sure you have the knowledge, and then you decide what you want to do. But the age that I think anyone should stop drinking, regardless of if you believe it or not, is 40. Because I think if you look at all the data, you look at all the research, you look at everything that happens with you when you turn 40, and you look at the effects of alcohol on your person after that age, the negative aspects of it far outweigh the benefits of it. It becomes so much more detrimental to your body. When you talk about cancer causing issues and how it sits in your body, in your stomach, and your liver for so long, it increases dramatically, and you get drunk faster and you do dumb stuff quicker. Like nothing really good comes from it. So even though I tell people, like, listen, I don't try to judge you, I will say everybody, I feel like at the age of 40, you probably shouldn't be drinking. And here's all the information why: because the positive aspects of it, whatever ones they are, do not outweigh the negative aspects that you experience once you eclipse that age, without a doubt.
And just go on Facebook and look at the people you went to high school with.
Oh God.
And the ones who are still drinking like they're 20. I mean,
sad.
So if you're a little bit vain, it's all as I am, I'm like, want to age pretty well, right? I mean, It definitely, you're just like, you don't look as haggard and old. 40 is maybe the magic age, it really depends on the person, but you're also just in your 40s. You should be old enough to know better about behaving badly.
I mean, you would hope, right? That is the desire, Stephen. It doesn't happen, unfortunately. But yeah, 100% you would hope. And you're just more prone to just have make terrible decisions. That's the thing. Once you get older and you try to drink the same amount, you get drunk faster, right? And you don't recognize how much drunk you are quicker. And next thing you know, you get behind the wheel of a car and you have a DWI, a DUI, right, and didn't realize because you thought you were okay, but the alcohol hit you much faster. And then just to your point, that all the various negative ways that it impacts you are just tremendous across the board when it comes to sleep, physical exercise, your relationships. All of that is just so much worse. And then you talk about like the building upon positive aspects of yourself. For me, when I stopped drinking, it became like the catalyst for me then to start looking at all the other aspects of my life, right? That was the beginning, because I got that under control. Then I started to look at my sleep. Then I started to really look at my eating. Then I started to look at my meditation. Then I started to look at my relationships. So it just allows you to really just kind of continuously growing and doing the things that you need to do. And the problem with alcohol is, just as when you stop drinking, you have this positive reinforcement in this cycle to make you do things better. The older you get, if you continue to drink alcohol, it becomes more debilitating faster. So that decline that we're all worried about when we get in our 40s and 50s happens more precipitously as you age, if you're drinking that external substance that's doing so many negative things to your body. So I just tell people, to your point, if you're a little vain or you just want to have mental cognition when you're in your 60s or 70s, you should stop drinking right now. Because if you don't, you're going to really decrease your chance of really being someone that's, yeah, you can have one 70-year-old that's in a wheelchair one day, and you have one 67-year-old that's going skiing down the Alps. Which one do you want to be?
Like, there's a lot of research around those issues and daily drinking year after year after year after year. I also think when you stop drinking, your ability to not embarrass yourself is better.
The other thing too, Stephen, and I tell people this all the time, and when I think about it now, it seems bizarre, but when I really like reflect, it's just the reality, the truth of the situation. I don't think I truly matured and grew up as a individual until I stopped drinking. And what I mean by that is, even though I was 38-year-old man, decent job, doing whatever I did in corporate America, whenever I would drink, I would have tendencies that I just felt, now that I look back on it, were one, very narcissistic, because it was all about me and not anyone else. And then two, were very childish. They were just, I would act like a 14-year-old kid and want things my way and couldn't understand some other person's point of view and get mad over dumb stuff. And I think about that now and how, no, that I didn't have to be that way. I was being a little kid. I wasn't, I kind of feel like it was a little sense of arrested development that I didn't grow to the level of that I am today, because I was so focused on trying to stay that 22-year-old and drinking and partying and having a good time, that when I finally stopped drinking at 38, yeah, I still like to have a good time, but there's a level of seriousness in my life of things that I want to accomplish that don't allow me to do all this frivolous stuff that I used to do. And it just gave me a deeper level of seriousness about my life that has taken me to a much higher level in my ability to accomplish things. And I just don't think that would have happened had I continued to drink, because it just wasn't there.
Well, and I think there is, and it is an argument for younger folks not drinking too, because of brain development. When your brain is really fully developed, is not 18, 19, it's a little older. And so if you are doing a lot of chemical stuff, it can impact that. But also, right, when you're 38, if you start acting like you're 22, it's just generally not an appealing trait for a human being. It's really like super duper annoying to see someone who should know better. You're like, yeah, I hope I don't do that, because I'm just old and I should like know better.
Yeah. That development is big too. I mean, again, and that's one of the reasons with Bamboozled, I'm really trying to make a push into the college campuses and getting the information out there. Because for me, I tell people all the time, I just wish someone would have told me when I was 19 years old, because what I was told is that as long as you don't become an alcoholic, you're okay. So you can drink and be fine, or you can become an alcoholic. As long as you don't become an alcoholic, then you're good, right? Just don't go overboard, right? I didn't realize, to your point, Stephen, my mental cognition was being impaired, slowed down, hindered, because I was probably drinking more than I could. Your brain doesn't stop developing from that amazing time that it grows and you can learn so quickly until you're 25 years old. So from that 18 to 25, if you take hard drugs and you do drink a lot, you can really hurt your cap and your ability to intellectually develop if you do that. Now, if someone would have told me that, Stephen, when I was 18, 19 years old, I know I wouldn't have drank as much, because I would have been like, I have way too much to lose. Now, I may have started drinking after I was 25, but I would have stopped and not drink as much, because I would have been so afraid of it. And so that's why I just want to press upon people, like, I just want you to have this knowledge. Do with it what you may. But I want to make sure that kids know that these choices you make, you think just stay with you in college. No, they follow you long after.
Yeah, and it's not, and this isn't to excuse any behavior, but alcohol and drinking too much definitely impacts bad behavior. It's bad. I mean, in college, at parties, in workplaces, and it does not excuse any of those things that happen, but it does. It's a fuel for a lot of that stuff.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And to your point, it doesn't excuse it. Like Jason and I talked about it. Like, we honestly believe, I mean, it didn't last, but it was proven research. During Prohibition, during the years in which alcohol was illegal, crime went down tremendously in the United States of America. Right. It went down tremendously. There is a reason that happened. So many things that happen on college campuses that turn into ruining individuals' life, and either them going to jail or them experiencing something that will stay with them for the rest of their life would probably have never happened if alcohol wasn't as involved and as normalized as it is on college campuses. And I'm not saying you shouldn't drink. I'm not saying that. And I'm not saying that college shouldn't have alcohol, because I think that's part of going to college. I just think kids need to be aware of it and understand the negative effects of it, and just just make better decisions long term in regards to how much they drink, because it's the volume that I think is so seen as normal in college that when you look at it now, it's like, man, what were we doing back then?
I was a teenager of the just say no era, right? Totally useless, egg in the fry pan, right? It totally stupid, useless approach to like teaching people about substances. And I remember sitting down with my oldest now at one point and being like, oh, you need to know what meth is. Like, you were, I don't know, he's 12 or 13. I was like, you actually need to know what these things are, because there's a likelihood that people are going to put those in front of you. So you actually need more information, not less. Just like, just say no to everything is not impactful. The more information people have, the better it is.
100%. Yeah. You got to understand it. Like the DARE campaign, like heart was in the right place, but you got to give the information, right? And I think the world that we live in today, Stephen, and I know from your podcast is called Sober Dad, right? So we're talking about raising kids in the society that we're in today. If you're someone that's like, I talked to Timmy when he's a little older, the chances of Timmy getting that information way sooner than you're thinking he's going to get it is very good. It's very good. So you got two choices. You can let someone else educate Timmy, or you can get it in front of it and you educate him and make sure he's learning the right information that you want him to learn. Because if you don't teach him, somebody else will. And that's just the world we live in today. You have to be ready to teach your kids.
Yeah, 100%. That's not just about drugs and alcohol. It's about sex. It's about all those topics. It's honestly about the truth of history. Like in this country, they're not getting that stuff in most the schools in this day, when we're pulling library books off the shelf left and right.
It is a very interesting situation where what is truth is questioned at times. And with AI and things, right? You question what you're seeing these days. So no, I definitely agree. But I've always been the believer that more education is what we need. More conversation is what we need. And like I said, I never want to be like, this is right. I'm not that guy. that's not my MO. I'm not a this is right guy. I am this is my point of view. This is what I know. This is what I want to share with you. Do you have something to share with me? You want to take this information and learn? Great. You have something to share with me that can help me learn? Great. And hopefully we'll learn something from it. There's so many people at times that kind of want to be like right or wrong. It's just frustrating, because I think as a society, we don't really get anywhere when it's almost like the goal isn't to come to a solution in these conversations at times. The goal is to win the debate. And when that becomes the goal, everybody loses. And I don't prescribe 100%. To that.
You lay out a program in your book that I think is really valuable. Can you just talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's called the MEDS, MEDS. And it was just for me, once again, from my experience, what really helped me to stop drinking. So you sounds like, Stephen, you were like me. You just one day decided that you no longer were going to drink and then didn't drink. I did the same thing. I didn't go to any program. I didn't do anything like that. But I will tell you, though, just to try to stop with self-discipline is really, really hard. And I personally think, to make it easier for individuals, there's two things that I think you want to do. Have routines and substitutes. If you have routines and substitutes, you will greatly increase your chances of not going back to alcohol. And the MEDS helps with that. So first letter in the MEDS stands for mental reengineering. And the mental reengineering really is part of what Bamboozled was written for. It's about educating yourself on what alcohol does to you. For so many people, they think alcohol is this fine, easy substance, and as long as you don't drink too much, you're okay. They don't recognize that even one beer a day is enough to impair your mental cognition over a long period of time. It can increase your chances of Alzheimer's dramatically and dementia, as well as cancer. One beer a day. So you're educating yourself on all the negative ways that alcohol affects you, hurts you, does things to you while you're drinking. It's really sitting in it. And I tell people, when you do the M part, mental reengineering, you don't have to quit drinking. You can still drink. I actually encourage you to. And part of that reason is, when I'm telling you that these things are happening with the endorphin and dynorphin mix, in which your homeostasis, with your body trying to get back to baseline, so all of a sudden you feel depressed after you stop drinking, that's because your body is pushing down the artificial dynorphins that the alcohol caused. That's why you feel depressed after you drink or had a long bout of drinking. People can sit in it and say, oh my God, this is real. I thought I'm feeling depressed because I'm in a bad mood or I'm a depressed person. No, I'm depressed because I got hammered last night, and now scientifically, physiologically, my dynorphin mix is heightened because it's trying to combat all the chemicals that I just put in my body. That's why I feel the way I do. There's nothing wrong with me. Alcohol is just making my body act weird because it's this external chemical. So it really educates the reader on that and has them experience it. So then they can say, now that I've read Ken's book, I've have all this information, and I know what to expect now, and I've seen it. Let me see what the other side is with it. Like I said, you can't have dark without light. So you can't have light without dark. So now that you've seen the negative side, it's because one of the first things you're going to recognize when you stop drinking, and it's crazy because I didn't recognize this, is that you're going to have a buttload more time than you've ever had before. I was like, money. Man. And money. That's the other thing. Heck yeah, you're going to have a lot of money. I was like, dude, what was I doing with I have all of this free time. So when you have all that free time, so if you don't do something with that time, there's a chance you may go back to drinking. So I tell people there's nothing better, I feel like, than to help that time or use some of that time is exercise for a few reasons. One, you need something to do that you can do on a consistent basis. And your body is probably used to drinking in the afternoon at 5 o'clock. So instead of you going to that bar at 5 o'clock and getting those cravings, you can release some of that craving energy by going to the gym. So you have your routine, your substitute and your routine by doing something different on a regular basis. The other side of it is that there's very few things that can give you a somewhat similar endorphin growth or feeling that from alcohol, like exercise can. You're used to getting the endorphins from alcohol. If you exercise, it can actually help you create some similar, not to the like that alcohol is because it's a chemical, but it can create some endorphins that can then substitute what you were getting. So your cravings will reduce if you exercise. So that's one of the things from an addiction standpoint, scientifically proven. If people exercise, their cravings actually subside because you're creating the endorphins for yourself as opposed to not having any because you're no longer drinking. The other side of exercise that I think is just natural, I think from an external standpoint, it's always great when we have a physical representation of what's happening inside of us. And to have that external motivator, if someone's like, man, Steven, you look great, man. What have you been doing? Looks like you're putting on some muscle. You're looking big. You're looking buff. Like, that's just going to make you want to keep doing what you're doing, right? So that's just a natural, pragmatic part of exercise. Next, D stands for diet improvement. And the reason I say diet improvement is kind of the other side of exercise commitment. So if you exercise, that's great. But if you exercise and you eat a bunch of crap, you probably won't see the external facts, the factors that you're going to see from eating well, from exercising. So I tell people, if you eat well, then you will see that the external changes. So you can actually have that external motivator. But the other side of it is similar to exercise. There are a lot of things like vitamin B. If you eat fruits and vegetables, vitamin D from sunlight and as well as milk or all the different things of vitamin D, folate that you get in cruciferous vegetables actually helps reduce your cravings as well. So eating green, healthy food helps reduce cravings. So if you're eating better, it'll reduce the actual feeling of wanting to drink as well. And then last, and for me, this is always the most important part, S stands for success seeking. And with success seeking, the reason I say it's the most important is because back to the very beginning, when you stop drinking, you're going to have a lot of time on your hands. And I tell people all the time, It is a gift to give yourself sobriety, or what I refer to as alcohol consciousness. Now, with this gift, you can sit on the couch and watch Netflix, Apple TV, Disney Plus, whatever you want to do, and waste your time. Or you can say, I've given myself this great gift because I've taken the governor off that I referred to earlier, the governor of your life that's put this cap on your life. You've taken it off. Now the world is your oyster. The sky is the limit. You can do anything you want to do in life because you've taken this thing that's hindered you mentally. So what are you going to do with it? What I tell people, try now to have a goal that excites you very much, that motivates you to become a higher version of yourself that you know the pre-drinking version could have never been. So what I mean by that is pick a goal that's so outstanding or so huge, so big, hairy, that if your previous version tried to do it, it would scare you. You wouldn't even try it, because what you're going to do is by you start working towards that goal and start making some progress, it will give you a reason to say, I could never go back to drinking because of who I'm becoming without drinking. So prime example, I try to learn, I've been learning Korean. My wife is Korean. It was something I wanted to do. My pre-drinking self, the person that would drink alcohol every day or every other day, or 5-6 beers or however many beers, there's no way mentally I could have ever learned Korean, because there's no way my pre-alcohol self could do it. So it was giving myself a goal that took a much higher version of who Ken Middleton was, that I knew I couldn't go back to drinking. And I use this analogy. Success seeking is called the wallet analogy. I always give Jeff Graham from Back to Zero podcast credit for this. And the wallet analogy is, listen, if you are walking down the street and someone tries, a big dude comes up to you, got tattoos on his neck, looks like he can beat you up, probably benches 315. He comes up to you and says, hey, give me your wallet. Give me your wallet. $3 wallet. You just bought it from Walmart. You don't care anything about this wallet. You don't know if this guy has a knife or a gun, but he looks big, looks like he's probably going to beat you up. You're probably going to give that guy your wallet. Like, look, it's not that big of a deal. I just got this wallet from Walmart, $3. Here, you can have my wallet. I'm going to go on. If this same situation happened and this guy comes up to you and he's like, yo, give me your wallet. And you're like, you look at your wallet, and your wallet, you've had it for 10, 12 years. Your wallet had pictures of your wife, your kids, notes from your kids that they gave you when they were going on their first day to school. You got credit cards in there. There's things in there that you could not replace. There's no way, shape, or form you can never replace those things. You're looking at this dude and you think this guy might beat you up, but do you think you're at least going to try to fight back or say, no, I'm not going to give you my wallet if he tries to take it from you? Chances are probably pretty good you would, right? And that is what success seeking does. The success seeking, the wallet is you. The artifacts, the pictures, the notes, those things that you are in your wallet are the work that you've invested in yourself to become this heightened version of yourself, being someone you can never have came before. So when something happens in life that makes you want to drink, this big guy comes up to you and says he's going to beat you up, instead of you giving away your wallet because you've done nothing but just sit and watch Netflix all day, you're going to fight to keep your wallet or your alcohol consciousness or your sobriety because you've put way too much work in yourself. You put way too much time and invest too much in yourself to ever think you're going to give away your sobriety that easily. And it just keeps you saying, I'm going to keep down this path because I've come too far and I've given up too much and I've gained too much to ever let someone take it from me again.
And I think that is an awesome ending spot. Thank you so much. Please tell folks where they can get a hold of your book.
Perfect. Thanks, Stephen. Yeah, so they can go to my website. It is thebamboozledbook.com. So if they go to bamboozledbook.com, all one word, they can go and get it. So if anyone's on their smartphone right now, type it up. You can go there and you can buy the book. Buy it directly from me. You can buy the digital version from Amazon. You can buy the hardback from me. And I even have signed copies for anyone that wants to get a signed copy directly from me as well. So 3 different ways, all on thebamboozledbook.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much again.
All right, brother. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. For more information, for links to any music or books we talked about, or to buy some Sober Dad Crew merchandise, please visit SoberDadCrew.com.